Hello everyone. Welcome back to another pep talk. If you're watching this on video, then you already know what's about to happen. If you're not, this is about to happen. We're about to...
Dramatic pause.
Yeah, we're about to do a water talk.
I don't even have water.
You have water. Right
Just to talk.
Just to talk.
Don't get me on the hexagonal. I go crazy on that stuff.
Because we just celebrated our 5th year anniversary, SatoriPrime. High five.
High five. For 5 years. Okay.
And we guys here in New York, so we thought we'd commemorate this event by sharing some wisdom. So first things first, thoughts about 5 years, the journey, where we are, where we've come, anything?
You know what? I told our story the other day to somebody, and you forget what you go through in life. It's fun, Here's the funny part. People always say that they wish they could go back to their younger body with their current minds. And it's come to at least in my world, realization that you would never want to do this ever. Like, this is not a good idea. and the reason...
We're putting this myth to bed.
Yeah, and here's the reason for this. Like, so many of the actions you take in life are based on your negligence. You just don't know. Like, if right now somebody was like, I need you to go start this business over again, I would weep in my hands and I wouldn't do it. And I feel like I would actually play safer because you don't know. So like you look back at situations like what happened to you and you think to yourself, how did I withstand that?
Yeah.
And the only thing that can make you withstand that is that you just didn't know any better. And I look at the same thing when I look back at like being an immigrant and what we went through. I talk about that and I'm like, that's somebody else's life. That's not my life. Because I think to myself, well, if I was faced with those circumstances again, would I take those actions? I don't know that I would. So I started thinking to myself, like, it could only be somebody who's in an erratic state of pure possibility.
Okay.
Before you've rationalized...
Before the logic brain steps in.
Before the logic brain steps in and has rationalized what you can and cannot do. Now, we're always pushing ourselves, and that's why we say step into your fear, because I know that there's stuff we're doing right now that 5 years from now, we'd be like, I can't believe we did that shit.
We wouldn't even be talking about the stuff that we're doing now.
Exactly. And so that pushes you. So it's like there's this really nice balance about doing kind of crazy stuff, not really knowing what you're doing, but growing from that experience. I don't know that you could go back and remake that, and I wouldn't change anything ever. So I think that's a big deal for a lot of people, and just like having that understanding. I love where we are as a business, and I'm going to tell you guys, if you haven't heard it before, like our first 2 years with no money, working 16-hour days, 6 days a week, 7 days a week sometimes, no results. And we always say that's, it's not our line, but like results is the ability to stand. Success is the ability to stand in no result longer than anybody else and keep playing with enthusiasm. I think that's like
100%.
Yeah, I think that's like an FDR line, actually. And I truly believe that, and I think we truly continue to believe that, and believed that in the past. I know that's true for anybody who's been successful. And to just see like where it's coming, like when I was telling the story and I was telling the part where I got to California, and I remember I got there in January, and that January we released a Facebook product. And I remember those first few weeks being there, we really weren't making money yet. Like I went out there on a whim, I sold my car, and that was like the money I was living off of. And I remember I was sitting in the car with my friend Rick, and we were driving, and sales were coming through. Like,
was that our first product?
It was like Facebook Business something with the Facebook.
Oh, the Facebook Business Reloaded. Facebook.
Not Reloaded. But it doesn't matter, whatever. Yeah. Some Facebook business product. And I remember like I was sitting in the car, like 3 or 5, and then like 7 sales came in within like a 20-minute span. And I was sitting there going, holy shit, we just made a few $1,000s. And the guys next to me were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, during this drive, since we started this conversation, I've made a few $1,000s. And they're like, how did you do that? And I was like,
I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure. I'm like, but the product is selling really well. And that was the first moment I remember like relief in like 2+ years, just like feeling like, oh my God, like this is actually working. And from there, it just started escalating. That was like the first moment we came with like OSM and a lot of other products. But that was like the tip of the iceberg for me. And I remember going, okay, we kind of know what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But that took 2+ years of like heavily investing on ourselves and work and talking to people.
What do you think was the lowest moment of the last 5 years for you?
I think when money got stolen, those 2 times. We've had a situation where 10 grand was stolen from us, and I think another situation where close to $50,000 was stolen from us. And that's for 2 reasons. Number one, we trust both people, and it was I felt like we got stabbed. And the other part is we had just gotten rolling, like that first 10 grand that was
Both
stolen.
times we just got rolling.
So like the first 10 grand that got stolen from us, like we had like profited those $10,000, and for us that was like $1 million at that time, and it was like money we could really put back into the business without like digging out of our own pockets. And it just got stolen, and we literally went back to zero in our company in a time where like we could have started taking off. And then the same thing happened with the other one, and just like dealing with the integrity, because we had brought other people into this business, not a business model, but like a way to generate traffic that we really trusted.
Yeah.
And we didn't test it well ourselves. And we brought a lot of other people under the guise that it could be really great for you also, but we put our names on the line. And when they didn't deliver, we had to be the ones that came back and took responsibility for that, both financially and reputation-wise.
Yeah.
And I think that actually like showed a lot of integrity to a lot of people, but it was a huge and massive.
We gave everyone money back out of our own
out of our own pockets. So I think like, I don't know if those are the low points, but I remember those are moments that it was like a huge gut check. Like there was never a time even when that was happening that I thought to myself, okay, we should really stop this. But it was a moments where I felt like a lot of wind got taken out of our sails, and it was a moment we also learned a lot, because I remember our conversation then was, at least this wasn't $1 million, or at least this wasn't $100,000. Like, let's get the lesson now. Let's learn what we need to learn. And it wasn't about becoming resigned about people, about being cynical about people, about taking trust away from people. It was about what did we not do properly in terms of our due diligence or our conversation or setting proper expectations or stuff like that allowed for a situation like this to occur, and how would we not have that show up in the future? I thought those lessons were invaluable.
It's so funny. I think when we got the $10,000 stolen, I think was a really big one for me. I remember what shifted it for me was we were at, I think it was Dallas. It was the first time we spoke on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time we spoke on stage.
Yeah.
And Mark Hoverson was in the audience. Shout out to Mark Hoverson. Good dude.
Yeah.
And I remember bitching to him in a way where I was kind of asking for his advice, but I was bitching to him. And he listened to my whole story very quietly, very great. And then he said, "Why are you giving this any energy?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Instead of spending your time focusing on the $10,000 that you lost, why not go out and make $40,000 by doing something else? Like, put that energy into creating something new." And that was a really interesting lesson for a lot of different reasons, because now I know that whenever I focus on lack of, or this isn't the way I want it to be, or some event happens and we know we have to spend like a buttload of money, like the live event, for example, right? Like the last live event in February, where we watched our bank account literally drop from 6 figures down to like $3,000 in the span of sub 20 days.
Yeah.
And I remember that was kind of, as scary as it was, that was the conversation. It was like, don't focus on that. Focus on how we're going to just create more impact, more transformation, more value, whatever. Like, the bank account will always show itself. And it's funny how we went from starting this business in the worst possible conditions. I mean, I think the lowest moment for me was definitely the knock on the door with the foreclosure.
Yeah.
I think that was that
wasn't like business oriented. That was like life oriented.
Yeah, no, during that time, I just remember that was my, am I in?
Yeah.
Like, am I 100% in this business, or am I not in this business? That was definitely the scariest moment.
When do you think you put 2 feet in all the way? Because like for me, that moment. Okay.
That moment.
Because for me, I never really had the experience that you weren't in the business. I felt like I was ahead of you because I got started earlier, and my skill set was different. That made my skill set apply. Like, I could apply it earlier on in the business. But I would never felt that way. Like, I think
I don't. No. So to clarify, I was never not 2 feet in.
Okay.
But I remember that moment. And as committed as I was, that was the reality check.
Sure.
Because I kind of joined with forces with you, thinking, okay, in the next 3 months, we're going to make X amount of money, or the next 6 months. That was kind of my window. I was like, we have 6 months to make shit happen, or I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Right? Because at that time, Fanny didn't know that I wasn't paying the mortgage. Right. Like, she had no idea. I don't think she would probably let me start this business had she known that.
Well, interestingly enough, even like a year into us starting to make pretty consistent income, there was still a conversation about not keeping it going.
Always.
Because of like Yeah, it's entrepreneurship, and there's inconsistency. So like,
Yeah.
guys, you have to get for like 3 years really before we saw any kind of consistent income coming in the business. And even after that, we had conversations about like, this isn't sustainable. Like, how do we shift it? Like coming from family, coming from everywhere. Like the pressure never stops. I think that's a good thing to understand. It's like how comfortable we've gotten with just being uncomfortable, and I mean that in business, life, relationships, etc. Only because
Everything.
we value growth in that space. And it's not a cliche. Like where you live in a constant stream of uncomfortability. I don't know that you can step out of it as an entrepreneur at all and expect to have growth.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think so.
So back to your question. So 2 feet in. I think I always had 2 feet in. I think that moment though, when I closed that door, the voice in my head was screaming so loud at me that I'm a moron, that I'm an idiot, that I'm a loser, that I'm all these things, and I'm not providing for my family.
Yeah.
And it was this feeling of, I know what I need to do that I can go quickly and provide for them. Like I could go get some bullshit job that I would be miserable at. Like I would hate my life every single day, and I would be able to provide.
Sure.
And I remember having that thought and going, I can not solve this problem, but at least somewhat, help it in some way, shape, or form. Where at that time we weren't pulling in any money.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, outside of pretty much,
we would just put everything back in.
Yeah.
We had no money to put
couple of bucks to put some food on the
cover
table. That's it.
expenses, and everything else went back to the business for years. Yeah.
So I remember when I closed that door, I had that conversation and I thought, wow, I still want in this business. Like nobody's business.
Right.
That other option of going to be some desk jockey for some bullshit corporation, as much as I knew it would kind of put a Band-Aid over the issue, everything inside of me was like, do not go there.
Yeah.
Just keep doing this.
You'll be miserable.
I know that this will lead to everything that we actually wanted.
That happened with Agora. We were looking at every option we possibly could. Just
I interviewed. It was probably like about a year and change into our business.
Probably.
Roughly, I got an opportunity to become a micro CEO at a subsidiary of Stansberry, and it was an opportunity given to me by a friend. It was in Baltimore, and put it this way: in the situation that we were in, my wife was actually open to me entertaining going to be interviewed, knowing that I would have to commute back and forth to Baltimore,
and so was I,
and or stay there in Baltimore. And I remember having the conversation with you. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Luckily for me,
that was a scary moment for me because we were pretty integrated together in the business, and I knew that I have to go big part of the slack at that point.
I mean, for me, really, what I think I even said to you, I said, if I get this job, regardless, I have a 4-hour commute. I'll definitely do that.
Totally.
I'll come home. I'll work after hours. I'll do whatever it takes because my commitment was to still
Satori first.
To build Satori first.
Yeah.
Have this as kind of protection blanket because at the time it was just getting
financial
pretty crazy.
It's crazy, man.
And here's the funny, and this is kind of where I think we want to transition the conversation, which is I made it through the final round of interviews. It was between me and another guy, and the other guy I actually connected with not too long ago. He's still there.
Mm.
And they had me do a personality test.
Right. Was it disc assessment?
Matt Smith had me do a disc assessment. And it was the first time I'd done one, and I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It was pretty accurate. And he called me, and he's like, we're going to offer the job to the other candidate, and I want to tell you why. And he went through the assessment with me, and he's like, I just want to let you know, I did this assessment just with you. I didn't do this with the other candidate. He goes, you have the kind of personality that you're like the guy in front. You have to lead the charge. And he goes, with the qualities that you have, no matter what you do, you're going to be successful. He's like, you're just not going to be successful in this environment.
Yeah.
Because this environment is structure, a lot of reporting, a lot of people telling you what they need done and then just getting that done. He goes, you'd be great here for maybe 3 months and then you'd hate your life.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that to you.
Mm.
So I wish you the best of luck. And I remember 2 things happened at the time. One, I'm very competitive. and I was a little disheartened. Yeah.
Why are you looking at me when you say that? Like, I don't know. Look at them.
I'm a little competitive. I was a little disheartened by the fact that I lost to this other guy.
Yeah.
And I just, whatever. I really thought it was going to be mine. But the flip side of that was, it was so cool that I didn't have to make that decision.
Yeah, I remember you being relieved.
And I just knew, I was like, okay, now it's
on.
Like, we got to make shit happen now. And it was, so I know we were talking about this before, about Surrender, this book that we've been reading.
Yeah.
And
that would also play off my question. So what's been like the contrast, like what's been like the most empowering experience you've had in the last 5 years?
Okay, so we'll get back to that book. Hold that thought.
I don't think we can play it into this.
Because I was just saying that the flow of life always directed us.
Mm-hmm. Back towards the business.
Always. Well, no matter what.
And I would say it's more of a mission than a business.
It just always directed us where we need to go, and I think now it's directing us into another place, which we can kind of talk about a little bit later. So what's the high? What's like the highest moment?
Sure, just the most empowering thing that happened to you, biggest lesson, anything like that.
Two come to mind. I mean, there's so many, but two come to mind, so I'll just run through them. Early on, I remember we made our first big sale, and we got a $10,000 investment, and we decided what to do with it. And I remember we invested to buy up to another position in the company at the time. And I remember sitting with you, and we had this powwow. Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to do this? And I remember sitting with that final click of the button. We had everything entered, and we were just like, are we sure? Are we sure? Are we sure? Are we sure? I was like, push the fucking button.
Yeah.
Like, I knew it was going to be. So I remember that being a really, really huge moment for us, because it was kind of put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Do you believe?
Yeah, do you believe?
Yeah.
And we knew that we would just make it happen. So that was a really big one for me. And then just recently, I'd have to say that this February, the live event was hands down. It felt like everything we'd done up until that point got us to build that stage, to have those people in that room, to put on that event so that we can start this whole other part of our journey. Mm-hmm. I still wear this. I've never felt more alive, more connected to my purpose, who we are as a company, who we are for people.
Who we've impacted.
And I'm so, now we're going to do it in November, and I know we're going to do it so much better even than the first time. But I can honestly say that the day after, when I shot that video in my room with no voice and nothing, I just remember that feeling of going, holy shit, we made it. And it had nothing to do with money or anything.
Yeah.
It was just, holy shit, we made it.
For me, I didn't have a we made it moment, because I've already learned not to have those.
No, I
know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but I'm not taking away anything from that. I know exactly what you mean. But what for me was so beautiful about doing the event, and I would agree with that also, because I thought it challenged us.
And all the lead up to the event?
In all the right ways, and I thought we grew super quick from that experience, which is what we had intended anyway. So it was just like, I felt like communication went through the roof. I felt like team building went through the roof. But for me, when I sat down in that room the first day of our part of the event, and all the rows of tables were there, and just looking down and seeing a timeline of my development, like my life with people, like it was like these people were telling the story of my life.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, here's what we've created together so far in the last 13 years. For me, that's what was like making me super emotional, because there's people who I like knew from the moment I got started my developmental work, people who even knew me before the developmental work, people I've met all along the path, like new students. It was like just this beautiful blend of humans that I keep in touch with, that are like my base, my core, that we transform their lives, they transform ours in turn. And for me, that was super touching, and just made like that whole event, I don't know, there was just something really special about the energy in that event. Anybody who was around it got like sucked in to this, just, it seemed like timelessness existed for those 8 days. It was really beautiful. And
8 days?
We did that for 8 days.
Oh, the whole...
Oh, I mean the whole in July.
Yeah.
No, I mean from start to finish.
Okay.
I like loved every part of it. And then as far as like empowering context, I think, the first time maybe we got on stage, I don't know if that was the most empowering thing. I'm trying to think like what else along the way that was like, wow. we did that.
I think the first time we sold a product online, our own product. I think when we
that's cool.
We won with Mark Hoverson.
Right.
So I got onto this webinar with Mark Hoverson. Funny, Mark Hoverson again. Actually, we met him after that event, at the live event. We had already done that with him.
Right. Yeah, we met him online first.
So we met him online. He did kind of a Shark Tank contest for a launch, and we won.
Yeah.
We won the pitch, and we launched our first product with Mark Hoverson.
Right. Made like 88 sales in like
it was a $37 product.
No back end.
No back end.
We actually built the back end while we launched it because we didn't realize you had to build the back end.
And we did, I think it was something like in the 80s.
It was like 80 plus sales. I think I'm close to 90 sales.
I somehow, when all told, we made about $5,000 off the whole.
Which a bunch went back to Mark.
Obviously. The whole thing, which was amazing. I mean, for us, it was just unbelievable. And I remember thinking, wow, people really like this. And the feedback was really amazing. I think that was a big moment for us. I think so. We put a lot of effort into that thing.
Yeah. It was, if we were smarter, we probably would have made hundreds of thousands of dollars off those sales.
Yeah.
We didn't know the first thing about building a product at the time. But I remember like how many people got results from the product and how little we sold it for. Like, remember, what's his face? Keith Baxter?
Keith Baxter, yeah.
Made like $150,000 off like a product we made $37 off of.
Yeah.
I'm like, you did what with who? He's like, yeah, thanks for that. He's like, I made a ton of money using your strategy.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that.
So yeah, I mean, it's been it is. I mean, it hasn't been.
Yeah, so let's take all this, right? Because so we wanted to talk about Michael Singer's The Surrender Experiment. So like caveat for me is my life. Who I am in my life is showing up really different. I think Elon would agree. This is what's cool about actually our relationship that I love is like we've been on this like tear about developmental work for so long together, but we grow in parallel together, like almost like the same lessons at the same time. It's mystical.
It's that rubber band.
It's mystical and it's beautiful. But I felt more of the rubber band during the event. Generally, I feel like we're kind of always grow together. Like Elon and I don't have a lot of down days. It's like I'd have to go really into my memory banks and be like, "Ooh, that was a bad day." It just doesn't. Life doesn't occur that way to us anymore. Even when it's a struggle, there's no suffering.
I just think we stopped judging, because really the only thing that judges is ego.
Yeah.
So it's this is good, this is bad, this is black, this is white, this is dark, this is this. I think we've just lowered the volume on that through training and the things that we teach people to do.
Sure.
So it's not. We're not at the impact of that stuff like other people are.
I think that's a good description, and if that makes sense to you, great. If not, I apologize. And, I'll keep doing the work. I guess you'll get there, I'm sure. But like Michael Singer's book is all about just allowing for the flow of life, and through meditation practices, a lot of things. I think it's something Elon and I have been experiencing for a while. But I always say this: like when you're doing subconscious work, when you're doing like meditation work, other subconscious practices, that you can't have a conscious impact necessarily because, again, you're not in the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And the conscious mind works through language. So when you're just having pure experiences, ayahuasca, meditation, whatever, you don't have language for your experience yet. Like something happened, you intuitively feel inside of you. It's like imagine like no one described love to you, but you like felt compelled to be around another human being. You would feel this feeling.
Even if you didn't have the word, right. You would feel the feeling.
You would feel the feeling, and you would know something has shifted about your relationship with this person, but you wouldn't be clear about exactly what that is until someone described love for you in a manner in which made sense to like articulated your experience well, and then you're like, oh, I'm in love.
That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it is,
that's
right?
a good analogy.
So spirituality is like that too. Obviously, there's always these shifts happening, especially when you play with the subliminal. And then it's like eventually you find a way to articulate the experience you're having, and then the moment that happens, you're like, you can identify it. Now you also see the choice that you have ongoingly to keep living into it over and over again. So this shift has been going on for a few months. For me, I would say probably November around Vipassana. Elon, I'm sure he would say in the last few months too. But reading Surrender Experiment was like the perfect articulation for that experience. So now it's like Elon and I are like, oh my God, like that's how we've been living. And now there's like a lot more power and we're giving a lot more like creative juices in that direction. And it's not even creating anymore. Now it's just like alignment with what is. So basically it's, I would say just allowing. Like what we're doing is just allowing for whatever is here at any given time. No judgments. Like there's nothing to be said about life being life anymore.
I want to just make a distinction.
Yeah,
so Michael Singer, the way he explained it and how he started on this journey is God, universe, energy, whatever the heck you want to call it, created everything, right? Human beings went from a single cell, whatever, in a lake somewhere to having this brain, we're just, eons away from what that was. So
Sure.
this energy, this God energy, is able to do that. This God energy created every plant, every animal, everything on earth. It keeps things in balance, right? Between these animals and this animals, seasons.
Everything,
it's
right.
crazy,
Yeah.
everything, right?
Life.
And yet we come to this infinitesimal grain of sand moment in time, and we believe that we know better than this energy force.
The mind illusion is that you have some say over how that's going.
Right?
Yeah.
So his whole thing is, and this is the distinction I want to make, when we're talking about surrender, it's not like
Giving up.
white flag, come in, take our shit, like we're done, we give up. No. It's surrender in the sense of there is this energy, call it life. And life, and you guys can check in for yourself because every person I've spoken to knows this. The best things that have happened in your life have come when you've kind of let go, where you've learned to listen to that quiet voice that comes from here, not from here, this loud, like Metallica, sounding thing. This is like Nora Jones or something like that. It's really light. And when you listen to this thing has guided you to the best things in your life. It could have guided you to your loved one, to the job of your dreams, to finding the house of your dreams, to avoiding what could have been a disastrous circumstance. And every single human being that I've spoken to is like, that's that. I've had one of those moments.
Sure.
He basically went for his life to have an experiment of how he can remove any judgment of whether he likes something, doesn't like something, whether this is good for him or not good for him. And he's just going to listen to the messages that life sends him, that people come and provide him. And he's going to use that path versus the thing that his ego or he wants.
Yeah.
And that's the concept. It's not this like, I'm going to just lay here, walk all over me. Not that at all. It's very active. It's not a passive thing.
And subtle at the same time.
And it's something that I think you and I have been doing even before our business. I had a conversation with our parents who also read the book, and our immigration was that.
Sure.
Every decision our dad ever made as far as jobs is concerned is that.
There's a lot more intentionality and consciousness watching it at work.
Exactly.
Than just like being like, oh, I wonder how that happened, or coincidences.
So to your point before, when you were talking about like distinctions of you feel the feeling and then someone says love and you're like, oh, I experienced love, I guess. So when you don't have something distinguished, it happens by accident.
Like a coincidence.
Yeah, you can't call upon a power that you don't know that you're doing.
Right.
You can, by mistake, do it a few times, and you're like, whoa, how do I do that? For us, for the past 13, 14 years, what we've been focusing on is creating distinctions in language, distinctions in actions, distinctions in habits, so that we can take the things that work in our lives and do them over and over and over and over and over again and constantly hone them in. Because without a distinction,
no power.
There's no power.
Yeah.
It's like putting a dollar amount on a random number on a roulette table and just being like, 1 out of 37 times it's gonna land on that number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, so we're gonna cut it right here. Sorry for the horrible video lighting and sound here. I'm actually at my in-laws, about to leave on a trip to Ibiza. By the time you're hearing this, I'll probably be back, I guess. But I had to record the final say to this. So if you're looking for how to achieve these distinctions, if you're looking for how to gain these tools of mastery, how to not do things by accident, but actually live your life on purpose and create the things that you want in your life, then I highly encourage you to go check out youwillhaveitall.com/live and come to our live event November 3rd through the 5th in San Diego. Tickets are free. I know that sounds crazy. I know. Tickets are free. You just have to pay a $297 show-up fee, so we know that you're obviously reserving a seat, and you will get that back at the event when you show up. If you want to bring a friend or a partner or a child or whatever, you can do that as well. You can get 2 Save Your Seats for just $500. So again, youwillhaveitall.com/live. And come get these tools. Stop living your life like it's a practice life. Stop waiting for someday to happen. Someday is now. There is no someday. So you're either going to waste the next 5 years trying to putz along and figure stuff out, or you're going to start living your life on purpose. So again, youwillhaveitall.com/live. We'd love to have you come share the experience with us in San Diego, November 3rd through the 5th. Have an amazing day, my friends. We'll see you on the other side.